Hello and welcome to Go Ballistic here on the Scottish Sun Sports YouTube channel, where it was a rather dramatic weekend of action, it's fair to say. Now, you'll notice that Roger Hannah is not here this week.
I'm not Roger Hannah.
You're not Roger Hannah. Definitely not. Just
100%,
double checking.
200%.
200%. Wonder who else has said that this weekend. We'll go into that in a second. Now, obviously, most people usually see you in the coffee club. Unfortunately, there's no coffee, there's no cake.
No hospitality.
Just me, I'm afraid. This is the sort of miserable reception you get in here. But tell you who's not miserable, Celtic fans. The title was clinched on Saturday. You were up there at Tannadice, a 5-0 victory. Pretty convincing stuff. That's just the way Celtic do it to get these titles over the line, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's actually their fourth time in the last number of years they've clinched the title at Tannadice against Dundee United. Yeah, it was an emphatic victory. There was not really any debate about it. Celtic were up there with the right mentality. They got the job done. Albeit I actually thought Dundee United started the game reasonably well. The moment that the Celtic fans threw on some tangerines onto the pitch actually disrupted things a little bit. And from then on, Celtic, it was one-way traffic. They got the job done. And as you say, pretty much sums up their season. They've been the best team in the Scottish Premiership for me, for everyone I think, all season. Deserved champions. It's been a matter of time when they're going to get crowned. And yeah, it's been over the line ahead of this week's Old Firm derby at Ibrox.
Absolutely. Now, Brendan Rodgers' future, through no fault of his own, really, has kind of come into the forefront over the past few weeks. Seems every time a big job in England sort of becomes available, there's talk about it. Somebody will link him to it, then he's got to ask questions on it. 200%, as you've just said yourself, that was the words that came out of his mouth. Can you see any scenario where Rodgers is not the Celtic manager next season?
No, absolutely not. He very much doubled down on it. As he said, he was 150% maybe a few days ago, now 200%. It's been my opinion, I wrote about this a number of weeks ago. It's my opinion he'll leave at the end of next season. He said nothing that tells me or suggests otherwise, as far as I'm concerned. He did say at the weekend that no one knows him. No one really knows what's going on in his mind. He's got a very close-knit group of friends and confidants, and that anyone is guessing when they look at his future. But that's our job. That's what people do. That's what fans do. That's what, well, not so much journalists guess, but it's my opinion that next season will be his last season. Now, that may not be the case. I think there will be talks with Brendan Rodgers and Dermot Desmond in the coming weeks. He spoke about Dermot Desmond at the weekend and how close their relationship is. The man that brought him back to the club, when maybe a lot of Celtic fans at that point wouldn't have had Brendan Rodgers back at the club. But for me, what he has said in the last number of months has pointed to him getting to the stage where after next season he'll have got to the point where he's served his time, and I can see him maybe stepping aside. I don't think Brendan Rodgers will leave Celtic to go to another job, put it that way. I think when the time is right, and I said just my opinion, that he will step aside, take some time out of football, recharge and go again, maybe abroad. But yeah, I don't think there's any question that he'll be the manager of Celtic in the summer for next season. There's obviously going to be a bigger challenge, we suspect, coming from Rangers next season. And I think that maybe be something at the back of his mind also, that I maybe actually get his juices flowing a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's been a comfortable season for Celtic domestically. They're going to win everything. For me, they'll win the Scottish Cup. It'll be another treble for Celtic and for Brendan Rodgers. And maybe that new challenge that's going to come from Rangers, we suspect, given the investment that's coming there, will maybe just get his juices flowing a little bit more.
We shall see. Watch that closely. Now, obviously plenty of good news for Celtic, but not all good news. An exclusive story that you yourself had this morning. What can you tell us there on the injury front?
Yeah, winger Jota sustained an injury at the weekend. Celtic fans would have seen that in the first half. He went down awkwardly, and an Alkes challenge was taken off, substituted, and joined in the celebrations post-match with a knee brace and crutches. It didn't look good at that stage. My information over the weekend is that the diagnosis at this minute is that Jota's season's over and that he may face a lengthy spell on the sidelines. That's not confirmed as yet, but that's the way it's looking. Bad news for Celtic, bad news for him. They obviously brought him back in January as a big signing, someone they sold for £25 million 18 months ago. They brought him back for, I think, little more than 8. Great business from Celtic. But yeah, bad news for him. I think it was a nothing challenge. He just fell awkwardly on the pitch. And the way it's shaping up right now, as you say, we've got the story online this morning, is that Jota's season's finished. He will play no part in the final league games, and obviously that Scottish Cup final against Aberdeen at Hampden next month also.
And no doubt maybe a little bit of concern with the start of next season coming into
with knee injuries, you know yourself, with knee injuries there's always that concern, that the rehab and the recovery, and it's looking right now as though it may be a number of months.
We shall watch that one closely. You're all over that story, Robert. Now, the other huge story that broke later on Saturday was Hearts sacking Neil Critchley.
Yep.
Been under huge pressure for some time. That 1-0 defeat to Dundee on Saturday, the final nail in his coffin, so to speak. The decision probably came as a surprise to Critchley more than anyone else. You know, he was talking after the game that he still felt he was the man to take Hearts forward. A few hours later, he's out of a job. Do you feel this was inevitable? It had to be done? Did Hearts have to take action?
Absolutely. The noises came out of Tynecastle a number of weeks ago was that Hearts had to finish in the top 6 and had to at least get to the Scottish Cup final. They didn't either. I know there were circumstances in the Scottish Cup defeat to Aberdeen at Hampden last weekend, some refereeing decisions that Hearts were clearly unhappy about. For me, the red card in the first half was deserved. The second one, I had a little degree of sympathy for Cammy Devlin for that second yellow card. But yeah, that took maybe the heat off him slightly. But that defeat at the weekend, losing to a Dundee side fighting for their lives, did not go down well with the Hearts board. And for me, yeah, you used the word inevitable. It was. The Hearts fans were not having none of it. I think the writing was on the wall anyway. I think had he even stumbled through to the end of the season with Neil Critchley, I think he was going to be going in the summer. I think, as I say, the writing has been on the wall for a number of months, despite what he thinks. Although you do often wonder when you speak to managers and you're asking them about their position and their future, if they're maybe just trying to paper over the cracks a little bit. Yeah. And I think I got that impression with Neil Critchley after the defeat to Aberdeen at Hampden last weekend. He was very much of the opinion that everything was fine. They would turn things around. They were looking at plans for the summer even. But yeah, deep down, I think maybe he realised that wasn't the case.
Well, Hearts now looking for what will be a 9th manager in under 9 years. Crazy numbers.
I think you're on the list next.
Well, listen, I'm quite happy what I'm doing here. And unless you want to move me on, do you try to tell me something?
You're fine.
Great. No, my application is not going in. Although, listen, you never know with Jamestown Analytics.
Well, if you take
the numbers, you've
got a laptop.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's it, you put me in the short window, straight to Tynecastle. Just speaking about Jamestown Analytics, though, you know, they were obviously involved, Tony Bloom's company, and getting Critchley in the door. They're going to be involved again here. Yeah. It's worked at Brighton, both in player recruitment and coaching recruitment. Obviously, you know, a completely different situation with regards Brighton, the league they're in, up here, etc. But where do you kind of stand in this? Is this the right way to be recruiting a manager? Would you rather see them maybe go back to more basic approaches to try and get this done?
I think it's a modern approach. I think it's the way things get done these days, not just in football, but in business. Stats and analytics are taken into consideration in our industry. Absolutely. So I don't have a major problem with that at all. I do think there has to be a human element of it. I think there has to be eyes kind of looking at things and deciding the right man or woman for any job. And it can't just be a case of a box ticking exercise. But that's saying I genuinely don't have a major problem with it. As you say, it's the way of the world these days. Players are attracted to clubs or pinpointed as targets by clubs, and this is the way it's going for managers. But there are a number of managers in Scotland even who could be in the running for this job, and you wonder maybe if that's something that won't be flagged up in their stats pack when they get through these things. But yeah, the Hearts job's a huge job in Scottish football. You know, they've gone through managers like nobody's business in the last number of years, and it's churned out managers and spat them out, chewed them up and spat them out in the last number of years. But it's a great job. It'll pay reasonably well. You're living in Edinburgh, a great city. So there'll be a number of people I think who'll be attracted to that job. A number of probably high-profile candidates, maybe out of work, who'll be looking at that and thinking they should be considered for it. As I say, also, I think there'll be guys in Scottish football in the Premiership who also should maybe be considered by Hearts. Look at someone like Stephen Robinson. I know over the weekend he maybe wasn't in the running or in the betting markets. It was doing the rounds, but if you look at the job he's done at St Mirren in the last number of years,
Tremendous, yeah.
I'm not trying to hurry him out the door of the Paisley Club by any stretch of the imagination, but you'd imagine someone like him would have to come into their thinking. You
would think so. Now, speaking to Stephen Robinson and the club that is going to be looking for a new manager, Rangers, in the summer, it certainly looks like now. Another disappointing day at the office for them, conceding 2 goals for the 7th time in the last 8 games. It's something they just can't stop doing. Now, the fans have certainly been sick of it for some time. you kind of got the vibe at the weekend that Barry Ferguson's very much sick of what he's getting on the pitch now as well.
You didn't kind of get that vibe.
Well, that is the vibe.
That is the vibe.
Like,
it's very much the vibe.
What do you make of the comments? Quite extraordinary. Basically came out and saying the players aren't listening. Views echoed by Liam Kelly in his post-match as well. Quite extraordinary things to be coming out of that dressing room.
Yeah, there was a sentence that came out of Barry Ferguson's post-match stuff which jumped out at me. What's the point? He actually said, incredible. What's the point? Which I found incredible. But by the way, I can understand where he's coming from. I think Rangers fans will understand where he's coming from. This is a guy who's come into the club since Philip Clement was emptied. He's working night and day to try and make things better. He's clearly got the club's best interests at heart, and he's in that dressing room. And everything he's saying to these players, everything he's trying to educate these players on, is falling in deaf ears. It's clearly frustrating for Barry Ferguson, someone who's immersed in Rangers, has been as a player, and is now on the coaching staff. Yeah, he's clearly at the end of his tether, but that was the one that jumped out at me. What's the point? He's standing there every single day of the week, trying to make these players better, trying to get them to understand what's expected of them at Rangers, and they don't seem to get it. But I tell you what, I've said this a number of maybe weeks, months ago now, there are guys in that dressing room who know they've got no part in Rangers.
Yeah.
There are guys in that dressing room, people talk about Rangers players currently playing for their futures. They're not. There are guys in that dressing room, guys in that team right now who know they've got no future at Rangers, and I think that's part of the problem. Barry Ferguson's trying to motivate these guys, but they know when this new takeover comes in and a new manager comes in, who won't be Barry Ferguson, that they have got no part to play in it. So, human nature possibly, but I think that's a big part of it.
With the guys that are still going to be there, a lot of them have been there a long time as well. What is the resolution here? Do you think, is there a manager that can come in and actually get a tune out of them? Or is it a case of it's a squad that just needs emptied once again?
It's a squad probably that does need emptied, but also that probably won't happen. There's going to be a takeover coming in. There's going to be guys coming in with investment. They're going to be looking at who's worth keeping, who's going to be emptying. They can't empty everyone. They can't have a complete and utter clear out and lose 24 bodies. That isn't going to happen. There are going to be players there in that squad who have to be part of what's coming next. But I'm talking about the guys, the key players there right now, guys who have not done enough in their Rangers jersey. I think they'll know at the back of their minds that they've got no future to play in it. But as I say, the guys coming in, the investment coming into Rangers, won't be doing it overnight. It's impossible to do it in one transfer window, in one summer. So there will be players who have to be a part of what's coming next. But I think there's far more players who will know that they're not going to be a part of it. But I think Rangers fans, as much as they'll be excited about what's coming, and rightly so, because I think it is exciting what's coming for Rangers, but I think there's going to be incremental change. There'll be big change to begin with, but I think there has to be a realisation and a bit of patience there that it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, not an overnight fix, absolutely not. Now, we'll build up to the big Old Firm game during the week, obviously in the Coffee Club on Wednesday. Before we get there, the Championship is going to a quite remarkable finish on Friday. Don't think any of us would have been stood here a few weeks ago thinking that this sort of finish was going to be happening. So, got Falkirk topping 70 points, Livingston on 70 points, Falkirk at home at Hamilton Friday night, Livy taking on Partick. Bizarrely, the two teams that each other faced last time around. Can you predict this? Do you think you know what way it's going to go?
No, I'm not stupid enough to predict how this is going to go. No, absolutely not. I think it's actually extraordinary that it's going to the wire. Falkirk, for me, have been the best team in the Championship from what I've seen, having watched a number of their games. John McGlynn's done a fantastic job there. Huge club, Falkirk. I think they would actually be served well in the Premiership should they come up. But then Livingston as well. I've been there in the last number of years. David Martindale, again, going down after being relegated. He's managed to revitalise things at the club and got them going again. It's coming down to the last game, so dramatic, so exciting, but if Falkirk don't do it, if they don't go over the line, they're going to be kicking themselves because they've been in pole position for so long throughout this season. I watched the game against Partick Thistle at Firhill last Friday night. They should have that game out of the park.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even before the red card, they were dominating the game, they went behind, they were dominating the game, they equalised. In the second half, they just didn't do enough. They didn't create enough chances, and the game kind of petered out. And then at the end, or it looked as though it was going to peter out, and then right at the last, literally the last touch of the ball, Partick Thistle go and nick the winner. Fantastic for them. They've got ambitions of their own in terms of the playoff. It's a fantastic league, isn't it? You know,
remarkable.
Throughout the season, it's fantastic. But yeah, if John McGlynn right now, if there's a man under pressure in Scotland right now, it's John McGlynn. For all that he's done, a fantastic job at Falkirk, and he really and truly has. they have to get over the line.
Yeah, what a night that's going to be. We'll be watching that very closely. You are going to go and speak to Kris Boyd now, I believe, aren't you?
He's got his charity, the Kris Boyd Foundation Charity Golf Day down in Turnberry. I can't believe my invite got lost in the post as ever. But yeah, we're going to speak to Boydie soon, so yeah, we'll be catching up with him shortly.
No golf invites, no coffee, no cake.
He did, in fairness. He did.
Quite a miserable day for you so far.
A miserable Monday.
Yeah, aren't they all? But anyway, don't forget there's loads of other good content across our YouTube channel, including the Coffee Club every Wednesday with Robert and Bill Leckie, Derek McGregor's one-on-one series as well, and also David Friel and Roger Hanna's special look at how Celtic won the title. Here's a little snippet of what you can get on that.
Well, David, it's 4 in a row for Celtic. We've come into the club superstore at Celtic Park. A lot of it's down to this man, Brendan Rodgers. Another title, a second in his second coming as Celtic manager. A new chapter for his autobiography almost. But how does this Celtic title winning team of Brendan's compare to his first title winning team?
Well, it would be a good game between the two of them. Yeah, look, his first team has sense that this team doesn't have, and vice versa. I think Celtic, both times under Brendan, have been very, very strong. You look at guys from his first spell, you know, a flying Scott Sinclair, Tom Rogic, they would obviously go and contribute in this team.
Yeah.
But then you also look at Daizen Maeda, how could you not put him into the first team?
Ahead of Dembele?
Well, good question, a good comparison. Mr. Dembele, that's what I'm saying. You know, you think of Patrick Roberts, but then you look at Nicholas Kuhn when he was in great form this week. You look at the Champions League results. Has this team done better in the Champions League than that team did? It's a different format, it's hard to compare. Look, two good teams. I know Brendan doesn't ever like to compare these two teams, but I just think they're two strong teams. And I think if you ask me how this compares to last season's team, I think they're far stronger. You're obviously losing Matt O'Reilly, but I still think Celtic at times last season stuttered or a bit, you know, at times didn't really convince until that final stretch of the season when they kind of moved away from Rangers. This season it's been far more consistent. I think Celtic have been far more dominant, and they're more in tune with what Brendan Rodgers wants.
He's definitely won over the supporters. I remember him coming back 2 summers ago when Ange Postecoglou left to go to Tottenham. There were doubters just after the manner of his departure to Leicester City those years ago. He's silenced them all now, hasn't he?
Oh, he's silenced them, but I think he knew when he came back that it was going to be a bit awkward, and I think that's the right word, because even in the dealings with him and in his own kind of body language and everything like that, he didn't seem the same. I think it wasn't until that run-in where he really came into his own again as Celtic manager last season, and he's just carried that on this season.
Morning, Boydie. Great to see you. I see you're down at Turnberry again for your charity golf day. Thanks very much for the invite. It must have got lost in the post as usual this year. But tell me, you must be delighted this weekend, Boydie. Celtic champions.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to, how did you know I was in Turnberry? Was it because the last time you were down here, I brought you as a guest? Do you know the surroundings, yeah?
Yeah, very familiar with them.
Yeah. So we'll just clarify that. You have been here. I've got to raise money for charity. When there's someone so as tight as you that doesn't want to get your hand in your pocket, that's why you're not.
Never mind that, Boydie.
Right, where are we going? I would do anything. I would do anything to stop speaking, so I don't need to speak about Celtic. However, I think we need to. No, listen, it's been another fantastic season that, you know, could potentially get better for Brendan Rodgers and his team. You know, I think at the weekend they showed again their quality. I thought Dundee United actually started the game okay as well, and then, you know, you've got to say Celtic, and they've got a habit of this season. That, you know, once they get one, they seem to get 2, 3 very quickly, and it just kills the game off. And you know, I think for Brendan Rodgers, you know, there was, you know, a little you know, period at the start of the season again, and I think yourself, you touched on it. You know, that Borussia Dortmund game was probably a wake-up call. That after that, you know, you've got to say Celtic have been, you know, for the majority of the time, you know, 8, 9 out of 10. You know, I think when you look at the Old Firm games, we'll be disappointed with. Well, Brendan Rodgers will be disappointed with them. Celtic fans I'll say that it didn't really matter as well, but they did. You know, hence the reason why they were so upset when they got beat. But you know, I think over the course and distance of the season, Celtic have shown they're the best team in the country once again, and you know, it probably, well, more than likely will be another treble for Brendan Rodgers. And, you know, I think when you speak about managers that have, you know, been managing in Scotland, Brendan Rodgers deserves to be mentioned right up there. I mean, his record is phenomenal. And, you know, there's obviously some unbelievable managers in the past, unbelievable managers at Celtic in the past, that, you know, Brendan, he's never going to catch them in terms of trophy hauls. in terms of the numbers. But when you look at what he's doing on a consistent basis since he's been here, I think you've got to, put him right up there. But I think that's been. You speak about, the modern day coach as such. I think Brendan has got it to a T that he can do both. He can coach. He's obviously got a lot of trust in John Kennedy as well. Probably more than what he did the first time he was here. By all reports, John takes a lot of the training now, and Brendan will, take a step back from that. But if he needs to go in and do things, you can guarantee that's exactly what he's doing. And he's obviously a fantastic manager, and he's led Celtic to, another title. But as I said, it's probably going to be another treble.
There has been speculation, as ever, Boydie, that Brendan Rodgers, with his contract up at the end of next season, he may be looking at things, and there's even talk that he could maybe have looked at things in the summer. He shot that down last week, and again at the weekend, doubling down on that and the fact that he's 200% going nowhere. Can you understand why he's doing that? To try and assure the fans that he's committed to the club?
I think when you've done it in the past, then and Brendan said the kind of same things in the past. He wasn't going anywhere. He was happy, but and I think a lot of the Celtic fans haven't forgotten those words and haven't forgotten the way that he left the last time. But I can't see it happening this time. I just can't. I think he's managed to take Angie's squad, evolve it, add his own, put his own stamp on it, add his own style to it. Are Celtic a better team right now than what they were under Ange Postecoglou? I think it's hard to disagree. I think when you look at, there's definitely a difference in styles, but I think Celtic have more control of football matches now. When you go back to Ange Postecoglou, it was all out attack, and when you're doing that, you're going to score more goals. But Brendan Rodgers will prefer to build up and then score goals. But it doesn't matter, whatever way you look at it. There will be Celtic fans out there that, they will still be a little bit scarred from the way that Brendan Rodgers left the last time, but I can't see it happening again. He knows right now that he's got something going again that could potentially propel him into a different level. I've spoken, he's right up there with the greats. Brendan Rodgers is maybe sitting there looking, saying, what is he on right now? 10, 11 trophies. Come the end of the season, add another one to that. He might look at it and say, no, I'm going to stay around here for another few years and add to that. You never know. He's obviously, he's settled here. He's decided to come back to Scotland, which tells you he really likes it. And you never know in football, it can change so quickly, but I would be astonished if Brendan Rodgers is to up sticks and leave in the summer.
You touched on that there, Boydie, because his contract is up at the end of next season. I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. It's my opinion, just my opinion, that I think next season will be his last at Celtic. Do you think there's still an opportunity there? Do you think he will be thinking long and hard about his future and potentially agreeing a new deal and staying on longer?
Well, unless you know something that we don't, Robert, then,
Just my opinion, boy.
You're entitled to your opinion, friend. You're entitled to your opinion. Again, though, I look at, Celtic are going to complete the treble. It will go into next season as heavy favourites again as well. If Brendan Rodgers is to go and deliver another few trophies next year, he might not want to walk away from that. When you look at, I know Tottenham has been mentioned, but it is different. There's no getting away from it. Tottenham Hotspur came and took Ange Postecoglou from Celtic. Will they come and take another manager from Celtic? I don't think that will be the case, but it is different because Brendan's already been in England and proved he can do it. So for me, it wouldn't be as big a risk. So I can't see Brendan Rodgers leaving this summer. Next summer, who's to say? As I said, it could change. You never know. If Rangers have the takeovers to happen and Rangers invest money and all of a sudden they're up there challenging and then Brendan Rodgers comes under pressure, because we've seen it before, even last year. I think that there is a small proportion of the Celtic fans that won't, forget what Brendan Rodgers done the first time, and they won't get over it. And if there is a little bit of negativity there, they could turn pretty quickly. But as I said, for me, if Brendan Rodgers is to go and even next season continue to win, that's not going to happen. As I said, he's moved back here, by all accounts, loves Scotland, built his own house or building his own house, whatever it may be, and is probably looking to settle here. I'm not saying that he might go elsewhere and then come back to Scotland. You don't know, but for me right now, I think he looks happy. He's winning games of football, and delivering trophies is the most important thing for Brendan Rodgers, and doing it in style. And that's exactly what he's doing right now.
You mentioned trophies, and there's no one who's won more at Celtic now than James Forrest. 26 major trophies now in his time at the club. I actually spoke to him at the weekend, and he was actually quite emotional speaking about it. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, I think when you look at the greats that he's surpassed in the last period of time as such, I do think that James Forrest is. He goes under the radar quite a bit. I think when you go back to when he first came through, and it was every week, and then he picked up a few injuries. But there's been moments throughout his career as well where Celtic have needed him. None more so than maybe last season as well. You think back to that period when he came in, Robert. He just changed everything, and Celtic got going again. He's got that knack, like an old school winger, in terms of taking people on. You don't really see it a lot in the game anymore. A lot of people will want to get to the byline or get to an area and come back out and try and go inside and things. Jamesy will go on the outside. He's prepared to take people on, and I don't think he's underappreciated. I think when you look at what he's done and continues to do that, when you think of the turnover of player that Celtic have had, and in a long period of time, for James still to be there contributing at the level that he is, deserves a lot of credit, hard work, the dedication to keep going, because it can't be easy when you have won everything and you find yourself out of the team for a period of time to go in and train properly. But Celtic have looked after James Forrest. James Forrest has been very good for Celtic and deserves all the all the praise he's going to get, because to be at a huge football club for that period of time, delivering on a consistent basis, isn't easy to do. I know Celtic have made it look easy in the last few seasons, but it's not easy to do. And for James Forrest to continue to go, I know another one, Rob, you wouldn't really be back out the Scotland squad either. That's just it just happens, these things with James Forrest. You feel as if that's his career, or his Celtic career, his Scotland career. Then all of a sudden, he gets going again, and everybody's sort of getting back the Scotland squad, and a new contract and things like that. But I think when you look at Celtic, and it's one thing that they have done, they've brought in players over a period of time now that have been very good for the club. But what I think Celtic have done really well in recent times as well is kept a hold and added to their squad with homegrown players. And that's really, really important, because they get it, they understand everything that's going on around them. There'll be players from overseas that will come in, and they'll buy into it, but they'll leave. Players from Scotland have to live and breathe, this before their football career, during their football career, and after their football career. And, as I said, for me, Celtic have been very good at getting people in that understand, the football club, and it's helped. It's helped them.
We brought news this morning, Boydie, that Jota is likely to be out for the rest of the season. In fact, I think he will be out for the rest of the season, and may even struggle to be ready for the start of next season. That may actually see James Forrest probably play more between now and the end of the season. It's a huge game at the weekend. Still, in the context of the season, it's done. The league is over. But for Rangers, Boydie, what does Sunday offer them in terms of opportunity against Celtic in the final Old Firm game of the season?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, to go back to what you're saying at the start there, Robert, for Jota coming back, and the emotion part of it, joining Celtic again, and obviously winning a league, and they've been looking forward to that Scottish Cup, but it does look as if it was a bad one. You could tell straight away. So I hope that he's it's a speedy recovery for him, because you don't want to see any players out for a period of time. But as I said, it looks as if that's going to be the case. But Celtic have got plenty of strength and depth, and as you say, it might be James Forrest. It could quite easily be either through the middle, Maeda to the left, and Kuhn is there as well. So they've got numerous options that they can that Brendan Rodgers has got the ability to change his team whenever he wants, really, because whoever he brings in seems to just continue where the person before has left. You think the weekend as well, Maeda starts through the middle, Ida comes on and gets on the score sheet. So I think for Brendan Rodgers, he is in a good place with his team, and the same can't be said about Barry Ferguson. you look at Rangers right now, and I thought Barry at the weekend was he was hurt. There's no getting away from it. He's hurt. But I'll say it again, Robert. I cannot work out, for the life of me, how many Rangers players are going to cost coaches and managers their job. It's coming up to the summer again. I've said it before. I think Barry touched on it the weekend as well, that there's a lot of players fighting for the future. It looks as if, it will be the start of something new at Rangers in the summer. Takeover happens, and they'll look to build again. There's already been a lot of change behind the scenes, shall we say. And Barry didn't call out individuals, but he more or less made a stance that it's not been good enough. To be labelled as, you're getting bullied teams, it's easy to play against Rangers, shouldn't be the case. But how many managers or coaches are going to say this? The players need to stand up. They've got a chance to go and do it again on Sunday. Would it surprise you if they get anything from the game on Sunday? No, because this is what they do. They turn up when you feel as if they've absolutely no chance of winning a game of football. They will get a little bit of praise. There'll be social media messages and pictures floating about, and everybody will think that everything's buzzing. It's been another embarrassment season. Let's not be kidded. Another trophyless season. It's okay getting to the latter stages of Europe, but domestically Rangers need to start improving and get trophies. There's no getting away from it. Finding a level of consistency to challenge Celtic, because once again it's not been good enough. And I'll say it again, it's another manager that has not called out individuals, but asked of the team collectively, to do more, and to be labelled, in terms of you could get teams can bully you, and it's they're not fearful in you anymore. It's a pretty damning verdict from Barry Ferguson. But can anybody argue with him? I can't.
He very much does look at the end of his tether, doesn't he, Boyd? Because I think one of the expressions he used at the weekend post-match was, "What's the point?" He says he's coaching these guys during the week, he's giving them instructions, and they're clearly not taking it on board. Yeah,
but again, Robert, I go back to, and I can only speak about squads that I've been in, and squads that, that I knew people that were in them as such, and players and the way they conducted themselves. I might have played with them at other clubs, and I might have seen the way they go about their business. And I know it's an old cliche in football in terms of leaders, and I've spoken about it with Celtic there as well. Like, they've got a nucleus of a squad that understand what it means to their fans, what it means to that football club. Rangers don't. They don't. I think that, as I said, you can get a result and there'll be social media posts flying about everywhere and everybody's buzzing. But the reality is, there's another overhaul needed at Rangers. We keep saying it every year. And until someone gets a grip of the football club, we've seen changes. There's no doubt there's going to be more. I think that looking at the weekend, Barry just looked defeated. He's tried to get a reaction out of this group, but the same things just keep happening again. How many times do teams put a ball in Rangers' box, and all of a sudden, if they don't score from it first time, pick up the second ball, and it's in the back of the net. It happened again. Mark O'Hara. I must say, Mark O'Hara's record against Rangers is unbelievable, isn't it? But I think from a Rangers point of view, something needs to change. Because at the end of the day, it continues to be the manager that gets the brunt of it, and they lose their job, and everybody, myself included, looks at the manager in terms of motivating players and what's going on behind the scenes. But there's been far, far too many players that have now seen off too many coaches and managers for it to be the manager's fault, and something needs to change.
Yeah. We'll touch on the bottom of the table now, Boyd. There's been a lot of chopping and changing down there in terms of results in the last couple of weeks, and there were some massive results at the weekend. Hearts, Neil Critchley is now out of a job because of their defeat to Dundee. Wasn't exactly unsurprising, was it?
No, I think I touched that a couple of weeks ago. I think when they lost out in the top six, when you needed a victory from a home game against Dundee United and an away game against Motherwell, you kind of felt as if the writing was on the wall there. Going back to, and I know it was earlier on, but the European game as well. Moldovan, was it Petrokub, failing to beat them at Tynecastle, which would have got you a crack at a playoff at the start of the year. You kind of get the feeling as if the semi-final against Aberdeen was a huge game. And I know, listen, Hearts came out with some plaudits, and all of a sudden we're blaming the referee and things like that. But in terms of even discipline from Hearts' point of view, James Wilson was sent off against Dundee United that arguably cost them. You then have 2 players sent off in the semi-final. One, obviously, in the first half that has a big bearing in the game. There's no doubt about it. But you look at Hearts and Neil Critchley's record, and everybody's quite quick to point at. He's not really. I mean, he hasn't won any big games as such. And I know people will say, but every game's a big game, and it is. But the reality is, Hearts need to be, beating your Aberdeens. They need to be, at least put up a fight against Celtic and Rangers. And the one that's probably the worst for them is Hibs, because for years Hearts fans have rubbed Hibs' fans his noses in it, and they have been the dominant team in Edinburgh. But it seems to have changed. David Gray and his Hibs team are on a fantastic run. Obviously, that came to the end of the weekend. Congratulations to Aberdeen, by the way, for them stopping that. Fantastic from them and Jimmy Tilleen. But for Hibs, I mean, they're probably looking at saying they're just raging that Hearts are not in the top 6 because they give me 3 points. But I think from a Hearts' point of view, again, you look at Rangers and the turnover and everything that's going to happen in the summer there, or you'd expect to happen. I think there'll be more activity at Hearts. I really do. Obviously, the Jamestown Analytics is going to take control of the football department. We've already seen, there will be changes there in terms of players, and now there's going to be a change in the managers. Well, there is a change in the manager, Liam Fox, at the end of the season. But for Hearts, who's next? I think we've got a couple of outstanding candidates, and you could easily name 3 or 4 in Scotland. But you think that with the scouting and the data that is going to be arriving at Hearts, they might look elsewhere. But sometimes it's just as good to look at home as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at Tynecastle over the next few weeks. But I do expect wholesale changes in the summer to the squad, and then I think that for me, and I've said it before, Robert, I think within a period of time this could change very quickly for Hearts. Yes, they're down right now, but we've seen it. The success that Brighton have had with the recruitment, and I know it's a different scale, but you only need to look at Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium. Similar type as in terms of the way they'll go about their business signing players. Obviously, we're able to draw with Club Brugge last night as well, and keeps them at the top of that with a chance of Champions League football, a chance of winning the Belgium League. Who would have thought that with Union a few years ago? So it shows you the impact that that Jamestown Analytics and the company as such can have on a football club. And I think for me, inside a period of time, Hearts will be back there, and Hibs, especially right now, I would enjoy it when you can, because I kind of get the feeling that it's going to change very quickly at Tynecastle. And there's no doubt about it, they'll be back next year.
But they do still have some major work to be done in the final games of this season, Boyd.
Yeah.
They're still down there. They play Ross County and Dingwall at the weekend. Other huge games: St Johnstone at home to Kelly and Dundee at home to Motherwell. There's some huge matches there down at the bottom end of the table, and Hearts aren't safe yet.
No, they're not. I think when you look at, if Kilmarnock have to go to McDermott and win, and Dundee have to beat Motherwell, and then Ross County beat, and I know there's a lot of ifs and buts, but if that happens, for me, I've said it for weeks, I think St Johnstone are already away. It's a miracle if they stay up. But, for the rest, that dreaded 11th place as well, Hearts are in the mix for that. We've seen it before, where a team just misses out the top 6, and all of a sudden they start to fall down the table. They're not good enough to switch it on and off. They need to get a result from somewhere. But if results go against them at the weekend, as I said, if Kilmarnock have to beat St Johnstone, Dundee have to beat Motherwell, and Ross County have to beat Hearts, all of a sudden those 5 teams are now, they're all grouped together. And, that 11th place, it could be anybody's. But, for Hearts, I do expect them to get a win or 2 in this bottom 6 and stay clear of that 11th spot. And then, as I said, there will be changes that will see Hearts back in the top 6 and challenging, especially for those European positions.
We joked about it at the start, Boydie, but it's a great cause you've got down there. At your golf day, you've raised some amount of money for your charity, and I'm sure you will again today. Who are the dark horses for your tournament then? Who's going to be...
I don't know, I've had to come down early to do this, so I've not actually had a look at the teams yet. I'll see once I get down the stair. I'm not sure. There's usually a couple in there. Big Lee McCulloch's can scud that ball an absolute mile. There's a few in there that usually turn up. There's a few in there that I'd like to have somebody walk the course with them as well. There's a few cheating bandits in there. I will say that.
Bandits.
Yeah.
Bandits, yeah. Bandits.
Yes, cheating bandits. Yes, you're right. Can't say the other word. So no, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. As I said, it's usually a fantastic day. The weather's great again, and as you say, it's all about the charity. No matter monies we've raised, it's been fantastic. I'm hoping that that we could get towards the end of this year. We won't be far away from £1 million raised for mental health, and it's thanks to everybody that's helped the charity and supported the charity now for a number of years. And we'll continue to try and make as big a difference as we possibly can. For me, I'm grateful that the amount of people come out and support, and hopefully, as I said, that small difference that we can make is saving lives. So I'm looking forward to today. But the most important thing is we continue to raise what we need to do to keep the charity going to help people out there that are struggling with their mental health.
Absolutely. We won't keep you any longer, Boyd. I know it's your tradition to go and have 2 or 3 bacon rolls before you go on the golf course, or 3 or 4 bacon rolls before you go on the golf course.
I'm off the bread, mate. I'm off the bread, mate. Off the bread and the pasta.
We'll let you go, Boydie.
I'm going to have an omelette. Enjoy.